the honourable member for Bay of Quinte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the time that Ray Bradbury was writing Fahrenheit 451 in 1951, it was a time not unlike 2023. Fahrenheit 451 presented an American society in the year 2049 where firemen were employed to burn outlawed books along with the houses they were hidden in, because of a government deciding what people could see and what they could say. The author, Ray Bradbury, described the book as depicting political correctness as an allegory for the censorship in the book, calling it the real enemy and labeling it as thought control and freedom of speech control. When the book was written, it was a time of massive social change and technological revolution. Hearings in the U.S. investigated Americans with alleged communist ties. Nuclear warfare was fresh. The golden age of radio occurred between 1920s and the late 1950s, with the television launching into living rooms in the 1950s, which changed how people consumed media and news. Governments took actions to make sure that the news and the artists that they thought should be promoted in this technological shift would be promoted, and the ones they did not like would be censored. The House Un-American Activities Committee held hearings to investigate alleged communist ties. The Hollywood 10 was blacklisted, a group of influential screenwriters, and of course everyone remembers the Truman Doctrine and McCarthy hearings. The government's interference in the affairs of artists and creative types infuriated Bradbury, who was bitter and concerned about government intervention. And he wrote then Fahrenheit 451. Flash to 2023, and we have absolute parallels with those government interventions with C-11. And I can tell you that just like Margaret Atwood, Ray Bradbury would not be impressed. The government looking to interfere in the affairs of artists and creators at a time of immense technological change. We have the internet, social media, and now AI. We use smartphones, and every day we use tablets. It's an incredible time, and certainly we will all in this House want to see our Canadian artists and content creators successful. In fact, we want to release the shackles and ensure that all creators are immensely successful. It's not by government intervention, it's by breaking down barriers so artists can succeed. There is no culture without freedom of expression. But don't take it from me, take it from the creators themselves. We all have already heard all week how Margaret Atwood called this creeping totalitarianism. I'm scared. Bill C-11 was supposed to promote Canadian storytelling online. In reality, the bill has ended up so broadly worded that it lets the CRTC interfere with every part of your online life. That includes manipulating your feed and search results. That's from a YouTuber and TikToker named Cal Marcus. What Canadians want is what Canadian culture is, not what the government says it should be. That's from JJ McCullough, a YouTuber. And C-11 would limit that reach by requiring creators to prioritize government criteria for domestic distribution over making content optimized for global audiences. And that's from Regina TikToker Tasha. Par la via de cette mesure législative.
Through this legislative measure, the government is giving itself the power to control what Canadians can watch online. On platforms such as YouTube, the government would force the platform to favor proprietary content. And this all depends on the Canadian character of the content.
Instead of giving a Canadian more of what they want on a platform such as YouTube, the government will choose what it wants Canadians to see. Let's be clear, big tech will still monopolize algorithms, and government will shut the voices down of individual Canadians. What worse, it opens the door for other governments to do the same. We already know how strict Buy America has been for Canadian manufacturing, and we fight it every day. What if it happened if they emulated the strategy against Canadian creators by emulating a Buy or View America against our C-11? If we control Canadian content, sooner or later, they would control American content, shutting Canadian content and creators out of America. It's cultural warfare. Another glaring fact is that people have to want to watch it, not to be forced to want it. Let's talk about innovation and competition as an alternative to this bill. The answer to see increased competition and innovation is to release the shackles of Canadian content creators. And I have an idea for creators. Let's see a Canadian Netflix company created that plays Canadian content. And we would call it Cannuckflix. Doesn't that sound good? Cannuckflix would be able ability to showcase Canadian talent, to showcase Canadian television, and of course, have creators put that content online. That's real competition. I have a great show in my riding, and it's airing right now on Bell 5. It's called Stoney Lonesome. It's filmed entirely in Belleville. It's starring some really great professionals, so some great local backdrops. They're 10-minute episodes, very funny, content created, and again, it's something that they want to see outside and to compete with others. That's a great example of great Canadian content. We should be promoting it. Tomorrow is a very special day. It's my eldest son, Jack's 10th birthday. And I look forward to his future, and all of us as parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents do, I think, wish all of our children, Canada's children, to have an equality of opportunity, success in whatever each of them want to achieve and whatever each of them want to do in this country, whether that be in sports, to be a researcher, a volunteer, dare I say a politician, to be whatever they want to be. The government's role is not to tell them what to be, it's to assist in breaking down any barrier that does not allow them to be what they want to be. And this bill does not do that. Today's creators do not function according to the same rules as previous generations. Today's creators exist in a new space and have new ideas, freedoms, and choice. And choice is a fundamental right of Canadians and the absolute necessity for competition. Competition allows Canadians to make their own choices and then themselves choose which content goes viral and which does not. It allows Canadians to succeed or to fail, but what it is that it allows Canadians to allow the free market to dictate what success is like and what it's not. I share the member from Lethbridge desire, who's been an incredible advocate for this cause. Let's give her a round of applause. For Canadians to know that this bill is going to impact them in two areas. It's going to censor what they see, it's going to censor what they say. With regard to what you see, if a Canadian government determines what gets promoted and what gets demoted, then that means it is censoring what Canadians cannot see. Furthermore, this bill would censor what an individual can say or post online. Creative talent here in Canada would no longer succeed based on merit as they do now. Instead, content will be subject to a list of criteria that the government has not released yet. So let's make that clear. We have a list of criteria that the government will determine just how Canadian content is, and yet we haven't seen it. As parliamentarians, we have no idea what that content is, what list determines what is Canadian or not, and therefore it's left up to interpretation, or as I like to say, the greatest line I've ever heard, we're here from the government and we're here to help. Through that, the government directed that those criteria have to be weighed and measured to see if they are met by the artist, and if they are, it would be deemed Canadian. Fancy that. And if they are not, it would not be discoverable, and then those that are not discovered will be bumped down the list of search engines on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, what have you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is censorship. Not only for viewers, what we can see, but for creators, what we can say. The bill is a travesty towards Canadian freedoms that needs to be replaced with. So here's the alternatives. A bill that updates the Broadcasting Act that promotes all Canadian artists and creators without censorship. What you see and what you say. Promotion and development of our arts and culture in Canada, celebrating great artists, celebrating great content, celebrating arts, and we know they all do well and they're incredible. And hey, a new tax code that taxes big tech. We agree with that. Some have said this bill is all about only taxing big tech. It's a little part of this bill. Main part of the bill is what you can say and what you can see, but we need to also have a separate bill. And if that were the case, why was this bill not separate into a tax bill that then just did that? You know, we're all about doing things we say we're going to do. You know, this is about creating content, creating more content. This would be under creative arts funding and entrepreneurship. You know, there's a lot of great things. I'm going to leave you with a quote before I end with this. You know, we always talk about Diefenbaker, and it's a great quote because it really surmises what we believe here on the Conservative side and what we believe for Canadians. I'm a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. Another great quote by Voltaire was always, I may not agree with what you say, what I will defend to the death your right to say it. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the end of Fahrenheit 451 ends with the symbolism of the legendary phoenix, its endless cycle of long life, death in flames, and rebirth, and the symbolism that the phoenix must have some relationship to mankind, which constantly repeats its mistakes, but the men and women of something the phoenix does not. Mankind will remember its mistakes and try to never repeat them. Let's repeal this bill, let's come back and get it right, and let's make sure that we respect the fundamental right of freedom of Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For a very short question, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Government House Leader.
Yes.
Short.
Madam Speaker, whether it's the Minister or many other members, very clearly what the bill does not do, and I quote, impose regulations on content of everyday Canadian posts on social media, and it does not limit Canadians' freedom of expression in any way, shape, or form. Why does the Conservative Party continue to say false information, planting anxiety in many individuals that use the anxiety when they know it's not true?
Very brief answer from the Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
The bill specifically states that there will be criteria determined by the government which will determine what is Canadian and what is not. That very definition is what you can see and what you can say, and that is censorship. In this side of the House, we're against that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.